Hey, this is Josh Rubin from East West Healing and Performance. It's Monday, feeling great. Today, this is a quick, easy YouTube clip. But what I want to talk about is the 5 stages of disease. The reason I want to talk about this is because it's going to sound obnoxious, but I feel really good. Everywhere I go, I feel great, I feel vibrant, I feel vital. But I look around, and I'm not being judgmental, I'm just expressing what I see. I just see really sick, hunched over, gray, yellow people. I mean, people just don't look happy. They don't look healthy. And we need to do something about this. Our society can't keep going the way it's going and expect to get better. We can't expect to come up with the best new surgeries to help with weight loss, with gastric bypass, and the best new pills to help people with depression, because it's not working. People are actually getting more sick, more depressed, and gaining weight by the second. So we have to make the change, right? As Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. Right? Don't just sit there and let the change come to you. So we're going to talk about the 5 stages of disease. And this is just to kind of wake you up. Because as Americans, and I should even say more male Americans, we tend to go to the doctor or focus on our health when something happens. Well, by then, a lot of the times, it's actually a little too late. So we have what's called homeostasis in the body. It's like yin and yang. It waxes and wanes all the time. You know, we bounce out of homeostasis because we're stressed, and then we come back down. And this was actually proposed back in the 1900s by Hans Selye. He developed the general adaptation syndrome and the responses to stress. The problem is, back then, you know, we could bounce back, right? We had a financial crisis or something at work, we got stressed, and we were able to come back down because we went home, ate foods from the land, you know, and we spent time with our family, we didn't watch TV. And it was all about family values and you know, being home and love and all that. So it was, everyone was in balance. Nowadays, though, people bounce out of homeostasis all the time. They're chronically being bombarded with every type of stress that you can think of, from emotional to mental to chemical to electromagnetic to physical to nutritional, and on and on and on, right? The key is we have to adapt to all these stresses in our life, because if we don't, we bounce out of homeostasis and we don't come back to homeostasis. So the second stage of disease from homeostasis is you actually start to see pathophysiological changes. Most Americans can't tune into your body, but the funny thing is, this way I explain to my clients, everyone has their own radio station, and your body's always trying to communicate with you. But we're so far from self and so far from tuning into self that we can't really focus on that radio station. Or we're actually very fearful of it, because typically when you focus on that, you have to actually look at all the bullshit in your life that you have to change to bounce to homeostasis again, bounce back to homeostasis. So you start seeing pathophysiological changes. And you should be able to feel some of these, but most people can't. What does this mean? It means altered cortisol levels in the body, altered blood sugar levels, altered hormonal levels, right? We should be able to listen to these. I mean, think about it. A lot of people, when they eat a high sugar dessert, typically afterwards feel nauseous, maybe a little dizzy, lightheaded, and sick. Well, we don't really listen to that. We ignore it, lay on the couch, watch a little TV, and sip on our coffee, sip on our juice, or whatever. Don't sip on anything. We just sit there and let it go by. Well, those are physiological changes that are happening, and if we don't listen to it, we go to the next stage of disease, which is pathomorphological changes. And this is typically when you start seeing physical changes. And still, this is when Americans do not even focus on going to the doctor. This is when you start seeing maybe like growths on the skin or things on the skin. You start seeing or feeling a bone spur. It's a growth. You start seeing postural changes even, you know, like a kyphosis or a forward head posture. This is when we start seeing, or women know they're there, but they don't go get a checkup, like cysts on the ovaries, growths, things like that. So this is when you start seeing the physical changes. The biggest one is like a breast in the lump. Yeah, breast, what do you call it? When women test their, breast in the shower and they do the circular motions for a breast lump, that's all good and dandy. But if you find that lump, there's actually things that are happening before that. Why do you have the lump? Those physiological changes. Well, why did you bounce out of homeostasis, stay out of homeostasis, and have these physiological changes? Is it the fluoride in your water? Is it you eating from a lot of boxed, canned, and foods that are wrapped in plastic? Is it because you're taking synthetic hormones or any other type of medication? Is it because you're using hygiene products that are riddled with xenoestrogens? Is it because you're eating conventional foods that are riddled with pesticides and herbicides and fungicides that mimic estrogen receptors? Is it because you have such toxic overload in your body and the sweat glands are actually releasing toxins which are causing the breast cancer? So you see, we have to rewind it a little to see why. And when we find that physical change, we're actually, 3 steps into the stage of disease. So after we start seeing pathomorphological changes, we start having symptoms. This is the 4th stage of disease. This is when most Americans go to the doctor, when they start having symptoms. Oh, I can't sleep at night, right? Or I have such heavy bleeding during my menstrual cycle. Or when I walk, it hurts my foot. This is typically like a bone spur, or they have gout, right? And there's many others that you can think of, and for a lot of you, it's probably clicking in your head for people that you know, yourself, or your clients. But when we have symptoms, we're into the 4th stage of disease. And the funny thing is, don't you think if we actually focused on why we're coming out of homeostasis, and we tuned into the physiological changes, and we tried to bounce back by adapting to our stresses, we wouldn't have so much death in our society and so much disease? Well, the 5th stage of disease is actually chronic disease and death. I mean, that's the end result if you think about it. If you chronically overload the body with all the stresses in our life, you have so many endocrine changes from hypothyroidism. You start seeing adrenal fatigue, which is super common in our society today. You start seeing severe hormone imbalances, which is common today. Dr. Lee, who's one of the pioneers in studying hormones, he said when he was alive, back in the day, he really never had to work with anyone to help them get pregnant. And nowadays, he was saying, well, he died, I think, 5 years ago, but he was saying that it was very common that women came in to not only balance their hormones, but the main thing is they wanted to get pregnant. They're having trouble getting pregnant. So chronic stress can actually lead to altered hormone levels, which can lead to inability to get pregnant. So we're seeing all these endocrine changes in people. We're seeing all these physical changes in people. We're seeing new emerging diseases every day. But the bottom line is, if you focus on you, if you focus on your health, which is taking responsibility, if you focus on tuning into your body, taking a look at your lifestyle, taking a look at your sleep cycles, taking a look at your emotional health, taking a look at the food you're eating, the thoughts you're thinking, the feelings you're feeling. If you take a look at everything, take a look at one at a time, but if you start to focus on them and take the responsibility to adapt to them, you can actually rewind the aging cycle. A lot of people say, and I heard this yesterday, getting old is a bitch. No, getting old is a bitch when you're unhealthy. And when you get unhealthy and the older you get, you actually get farther from self. The farther you get from self, the more sick you get because the less you can tune in. So it's really simple. Start focusing on these principles. And you can go to our YouTube page to learn more. You can go to our website. We get tons of free resources, from articles to audio programs to tons of different websites. You can search on the web. You can buy a book. A great book to start with is How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy by Paul Chek. It covers a lot of those principles. So it's not just about nutrition. It's not about just sitting on the beach all day and meditating, right? It's not about just putting money in your bank account. It's about figuring out what pieces make up you. What pieces are your puzzle that make up your healing puzzle? Focusing on one of them at a time to help rewind those stages of disease. So hopefully you learned something. Just a quick tidbit of information that I find very useful to people, because we think symptoms are the 1st stage of disease. Well, it's not. It's actually the 4th. So hopefully I taught you something. If you want to learn more, go to our website at eastwesthealing.com. You can sign up for our free newsletter, take a look at our blog, take a look at a free audio programs and articles, and hopefully we've taught you something, and hopefully you start taking responsibility for yourself. Thanks, and we'll see you later this week.